Any advice for 15-year-olds?
I knew I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. But that doesn't necessarily mean I was going to be a good entrepreneur. But I wouldn't think that's good advice for everyone.
So if the expectation of my family is that I should do 0 to 100, then I'm going to fail. I've never had to bootstrap. I've been groomed to be a person who takes 100 to 1,000. So let me do that.
Hello everyone, welcome to EI Dialogues. My name is Pranav Kothari and I'm the CEO of Educational Initiatives. EI Dialogues is our endeavor to bring normally what are closed door conversations out in the public so that you get a chance to understand how great leaders think, what they're willing to share about the reasons for their successes. In today's episode, we have two guests that I have recently got to know. And in today's conversation, I'm curious about many things to ask them. Today, we have Shikhar Malhotra, who is a trustee of the Shiv Nadar Foundation and the CEO of HCL Healthcare. And he's going to tell us about the world of business. And I'm very curious to know about his upbringing, what led him here, what are the traits that he sees in other businessmen that he admires, and what are some important skills and competencies that he wants for future students of Shiv Nadar University to have. I also have with me Bharat, who is a member of the parliament from Visakhapatnam, Vizag. He's the president of GITAM. And I'm curious to know what led him down this path of politics to be an elected leader and to essentially sort of hear from him what are some politicians that he admires. What has he seen? What does the inner world of politics looks like? Because that's not something I've had an exposure to, and also hear from him about the future of GITAM and what institution he wants to build. Thank you, Shikhar, for coming. Thank you, Bharat. It's a pleasure to have you both on the show.
Thank you.
Bharat, would love to start, and if you could tell a little bit about, growing up, what were some decisive moments that have helped you reach where you are? As a member of the parliament from Visakhapatnam, would love to hear, how did you decide on reaching here, and what were some inflection moments in this journey?
Privilege, Pranav. I've born in a family where both my granddads have been members of parliament. My mother's father and my father's father started business in the 60s, got into politics in the 80s. Between them, they've been an MP multiple times. So I grew up very close to them, and I was enamored by the impact that they had, the lives that they changed, and just the personalities that they were. So I always wanted to walk in a similar path. I didn't know that it would be an MP, or I didn't know when it would happen. So the focus was on education. Early years was about being groomed to join the family business. And so I did that. Over time, as I finished college, started working in the university, I fell in love with education. And I felt that that's my calling. And politics happened sort of by chance because my granddad got ill, and suddenly at that moment he's like, will you come to Vizag, will you contest? So I agreed, but unfortunately he passed away a few months later in an accident. But I persisted on that path. I contested in the 19 elections. All of this is privilege because I didn't work to earn anything that my party would feel that, oh, this guy has achieved something in life. It was rather that he's well educated, he's passionate, and he has this legacy. So there is recognition in the constituency for the good work that his grandfather has done. So that gave me the opportunity to contest. I lost in 19, but worked, and now I won in 24.
What are some of the skills, what are some of the traits do you think it, takes to be a good politician?
So it's like being groomed from a very young age, right? So I traveled to the constituencies on both sides, more so my mother's father's side, very frequently, particularly between the period of 2004 to 14. And my granddad was not a usual MP. He worked equal to what a member of the Legislative Assembly would do, which is far more grounded in the roots, in the weeds. So every weekend when Parliament is in session and 3-4 days a week when Parliament isn't in session, he would be in the constituency and go to villages, largely rural constituencies. I would go with him once in a few months. So he used to keep telling us that the joy that you get by impacting people's lives, and one particular thing, at that time the pension was increased from 75 rupees a month to 200 rupees a month in 2004-05. And I was going to high school then. And I used to get 50 rupees a day for lunch. So the stark difference. And then you see, and they're still living with relative happiness. So then you feel like you need to work for those people. In general, I think the ethos I've picked up is whatever goodness is there in society for whatever reason is worth protecting and worth fighting for. And that I got from a young age. And the joy you get from impacting people's life positively is, to me, far greater than anything else.
And Bharat, like, let's say you had the legacy of your grandparents on both sides and the material wealth. But perhaps if you have seen other politicians who have maybe come, and for the audience, if their parents aren't from the same lineage, how should they embark on this path of politics? Like, what should they be doing when they're 15, when they're 20, when they're 25? If you don't have any connections, if you don't have the wealth to begin this, what advice do you have?
It's very difficult. So if you don't have any background, then you need to be famous, or you need to be wealthy, or you need to be better off if you're coming from a disadvantaged group. If you're coming from a backward caste or a lower economic strata of society, amongst your peers, if you are amongst the shining spot, then you stand a chance. Entry is difficult in politics because it's unpredictable. Right? If you feel that, I want to enter, I want to get a ticket tomorrow, you won't get it. But if you commit to an ideology, commit to a party, you work as a spokesperson, you work as an organizational person, then you will see that in years you will get the reward. Most people don't have that patience. They're like, I come in, I want to know exactly in how much time I'll get a ticket. That certainty is not there.
When you lost in 2019, what kept you going?
I was actually happy because my family lost a lot of money, so they were unhappy. But for me, I became the university president at around the same time. So I love education. It's a great opportunity. I mean, it's unusual for a 29-year-old to become a university president. So there's a lot of responsibility. So I felt contesting, coming very close and losing was like, people know I'm good. I've given a fight. So this is good enough for me. I'll continue in this sphere, but I'll focus on education.
What did you do differently in the 2024 election?
I think first, external circumstances really changed. So that really helped. And I was consistent, I would say. I didn't speak something before elections, after. I've been more or less the same for the last 6 years. So people realize that this guy is not bullshitting. He's actually meaning to do something.
What are those things that you're consistently telling?
I will not appease caste groups. I will not promise any freebie or any investment to you that I don't think I'll be able to do. So I will be upfront about those kinds of things. I generally speak about social upliftment, equity, access to opportunity, and ensuring that there is fairness in society.
Shikhar, would love to learn about your upbringing and any moments that sort of motivated you to join the world of business and the role that you play today.
Thank you for having me, Pranav. Great to meet Bharat as well. So I grew up in Kuwait, right? And I am a third generation entrepreneur. So my grandfather, I never met him, but he moved to Basra in 1946. So even pre-independence and simpler time. I suppose somebody at some point on a bus stop told him, great place to go for business. He packed up his bags the next day and he went. Didn't have to look up anything online. So decisions were very simplistic and easier. And he arrived there, and then he wrote a letter back saying, hey, listen, this place isn't half bad. And Basra was a hub, the business hub, and this is before they discovered oil in a lot of these places, or discovered but commercialized oil in Kuwait and Saudi and a lot of these places. And so Suddenly there was like a whole bandwagon of Punjabis landing up in Basra, and thinking everyone was looking. I remember 47 was this massive year of flux, right? For us as a country as well. So through there, I guess somebody told him that the greener pastures in Kuwait, and so he went and opened up the first restaurant in Kuwait, which is kind of bonkers if you think about it. And my father actually was only 4 years old when his father passed away. So he never really he didn't really grow up with a father either, but he had 6 siblings, and so elder brothers mostly. And they all migrated to Kuwait because at that point, that business, the restaurant, morphed into a trading house, and it became sizable where it could employ a lot of people, and it kept growing and growing. And so my father moved there. At that point in 1990, India was generally considered to be economically, not very safe. And so the convention was keep your wealth outside of India, right? Because India is not that safe. And imagine the irony that all the wealth was outside of India and we lost actually everything, right? So we went from whatever we had, pretty good lifestyle, to absolutely zero. So for me, that was somebody asked me actually some years ago, when do your first memories start? I think they really start from actually there. I was 7 years old. So my first memory is really formulated from around that time. Maybe because it was a very vivid experience. And, viscerally, you could feel it, right? Like on an everyday basis, that like bombs going off and, the house, the windows would be vibrating for about a month. We were there for about a month or so. So we were anyone living in Kuwait, was in that war zone at that time. And so we then actually escaped on a military aircraft, right? Sitting on boxes and tires. And my younger brother was only 6 months old. So my mother was holding him in his hands. Yeah, which is the absolute mind-boggling thing is my mother was only about 32, right? About 10 years younger than what I am. And so 3 kids, and you're living just a phone call away that you've got to run. So we left with a backpack, like this, no belongings, no assets, nothing. And so that, they made that movie Airlift, right? About that, right? My dad thinks he's Akshay Kumar in the movie. Okay, quite clearly not. But that was quite it's quite close to the truth, actually.
Before to India.
Yeah, so we flew to India. So we actually came back on the first flight out in August, and we landed. And I remember there were all of these people there to receive us, the media and everything like that. And we were on one of those military planes where the hull comes down like that, right? And you drive vehicles out. And it was a rainy day in August. And I remember somebody took the first step and they went straight down. So then they formed a human chain to get those people out. But that's where the first experiences happened. And then my dad looked for work for the next 18 months because there just wasn't really any work to be had. And he actually went to look at every industry possible. Fortunately, we had a home here in Delhi. But that for me was a very interesting experience. So I spent the 2 years here in Delhi. I then went back and finished my high schooling there. But I think those are some sort of pivotal moments. And then from there on, I spent a lot of time with my dad, learning his business and, learning financial ratios and things like that. So I think it got sort of through osmosis, of conversation and being in that surrounding, it sort of started seeping in gradually more and more into, everyday conversation. What I really liked was I got to spend like weekends and, maybe a half day at his office, learning how things work, learning ratios, the conversations we'd be having. And I think that, the trickling effect really started picking in. I got the bug a little bit. So then I started experimenting with a few things in school. I remember in school, I started bringing pizza to school, right? And selling it at 4 times the price, right? On pizza. Because, remember in school, we didn't get any food, right? Okay, growing up in the 90s. So we didn't get any food. I don't know what we were eating in the school tuck shop. Now they got nice cafeterias and everything. Yeah. So I'd bring pizza, and just...
Interesting.
It was like a prison economy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you had to... So, a little bit of hustle was good.
What was the mindset like around that time of doing a business versus taking a job?
So, I mean, if there are any Punjabis watching this, right, you'll understand that, for Punjabis, a bit like sort of Gujaratis also, okay, you're almost born into like entrepreneurship, right? That's like the everyday conversation at home. So I suppose there was a bit of that head start in a mindset, right? That mindset always was that you got to do something for yourself.
What were your dinner table conversations like? Like growing up, like what would you guys discuss?
So at home, my dad was very busy when I was young. So it was mostly my mother and I, and my younger brother is 5 years younger to me. So I think from my mother, it's more who I am as a person. Like I'm generally frugal. I don't like, I'm environmentally conscious. She wouldn't like it when I littered or when I wasted water. So those are things that I've sort of ingrained from her. She's very easygoing. So she's like, enjoy the process. Don't worry about the outcome. We should play a lot of games, watch movies together. So those are the things with my mom. My sort of father figure in my early years was my maternal granddad. So we used to go to his house once or twice a week. And he was a very enterprising person. So he would always have someone home for dinner, and some politician, some civil servant, some businessman. And they would be speaking about so many things. So I was a fly on the wall, just listening to a lot of things, different people, different conversations.
Was there something like as a son of a business family that you didn't like?
I didn't join my father's business, right? So I grew up in this business environment, and I echo what Bharat's saying, because my mother was a very influential figure. So I suppose she sort of shaped the personality, and my dad was busy, and my dad was like, the hard dad at work, and then the fun dad sometimes, so weekends sort of were with him doing like, some activity or the other. But my mother spent a lot of time painstakingly to shape the personalities. So she says, be empathetic, be kind. So my brothers and I are very different, but I suppose the common threads that you'll find in that sense, right? So we try to be empathetic and kind, and it's not perfect. There are like some things that she didn't teach us, right? We had to learn along the way. I wanted to move to India, to a bigger market, and this is 2004. Experience all the chaos and the opportunity India offered at that time, right? And I just loved all the chaos. So a lot of people live in the Middle East. They find it hard to come back to India and to acclimatize, because, you take things like electricity for granted. And I suppose that's a little bit of that osmosis effect from my dad, just watching him, be a good entrepreneur.
Would you say that's a precondition for someone to be in business, that they have to be okay with flux? They have to be okay with, be very adaptable. Like someone who's very structured by the books, it's just harder to be a businessman.
I think that people that have worked on the ground and have experienced disruption and chaos and tend to be a bit more resilient. So they're okay in pivoting and changing, course correcting wherever needed.
Would you say number one skill to be a businessman is sales?
Sales.
Like selling on the ground, trying to pitch,
the process.
Okay.
You need a package of things. Maybe curiosity and resilience is pretty up there. If you're curious, you'll think through a problem. And if you're curious and resilient, you'll stay with the problem longer. Okay. So if you're not curious and resilient, if you have one of the two, sometimes, you don't stay with the problem long enough.
Or you stay with the wrong problem. If you're resilient without being curious.
Yeah.
Let's say a 9, 10 standard student is listening to this conversation, right? Like, is there a self-check that they can do on whether they're more inclined towards politics or business? Like, is there something that they can introspect or take a test?
I didn't know what I wanted to do at that age, right? I knew that I was inspired by certain people. Long term, I saw, but I didn't know my next step. I was very sort of a math and science oriented kind of kid. So I knew that I wanted to go into STEM and do engineering. But beyond that, I wasn't like, I'm going to start this company or I'm going to start this job. I didn't know. I enjoyed the process. So I would say be happy. Like focus on learning and be curious. Don't worry so much about life. You will get opportunities over time.
Okay. Yeah. Any advice for 15-year-olds?
It's hard because, whatever I'm going to say is going to be a lie, because I was quite sure what I wanted to do, but I wouldn't think that's good advice for everyone. I knew I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but that doesn't necessarily mean I was going to be a good entrepreneur. The conviction came, a lot of it from within. There were certain things I had to shed. I was very entitled, and I thought I deserve things, and things should come to me. So through my early 20s, and then when you think that, you end up making a lot of mistakes. So I made a lot of mistakes. And so shedding that entitlement mentality and tag took some time, but it knocks the ego out of you a little bit, and it makes you a better entrepreneur for sure. So those are realizations that I had through reflection. Had I not been able to reflect, probably I would have just continued going as what Bharat was saying, right? You just stay resilient with the wrong direction.
In grad school, when I was thinking about what career to take, I realized it's not just an intellectual discussion like where you're reading books or talking to the same folks. It's an experiential decision. So now when people ask, I say, like, if you want to be a chef tomorrow, cut the onions today, wash the dishes, see if you are energized or tired. And if you're energized, and go intern at a restaurant and sort of do that. And are you getting goosebumps or are you feeling exhausted?
Correct.
And which is a great experiment to run, because you're either closing one door on a career or going deeper in the one that you like. And I feel like people are over-indexing on reading about a career or market trends or salaries or what other people in their lives, families have said, but not giving the first-hand experience of doing a micro experiment on that career path.
See, our environments are not designed very well for that. We don't have a very strong culture of doing internships and part-timing in some place, and systems aren't designed, our cultures aren't designed for that. So we are trying to change.
Could students do that without a formal internship?
In the US, it's a systemic design where you're encouraged to or are expected to do extracurricular activities, go intern somewhere, do part-time work. So both the employer and the employee is ready for that. In India, it's like the exception. It's like some kids in certain pockets have that desire, and some organizations have that program, but it's not there at scale. The government is trying to change that. So recently, you've heard of the huge 1 crore internships for youth in the 500. So that's a good debate to start, right? So start pushing that narrative so that people start thinking, oh, why not? Why don't we start designing for this?
Did you intern anywhere? Any learnings from those?
As Shikhar was saying, I was very entitled, right? So I was like very comfortable. I knew that I had a business to fall back on. So there was no urgency to try something. So when I went to undergrad in the US, I went to Purdue, and I've tried to do internships, but I never had a killer instinct. I was like lazily applying, got into some company on a recommendation. I injured my back, stopped after a week. Effectively, I didn't do any good internships in my whole undergrad. And then I graduated, and I could have stayed back in the US. But again, I was like, no, I have a family business back home, so I'll just go back. So I was always taking sort of the easy path. But my rationalization was that, see, I have not grown up in an environment where I've built something from 0 to 100. So if the expectation of my family is that I should do 0 to 100, then I'm going to fail.
Really?
I don't have the same fire in the belly. I don't have scarcity. I've never had to bootstrap. I've always been comfortable. I've been groomed to be a person who takes 100 to 1,000. So let me do that. Give me the opportunity to do that, because that's how you raised me.
There are also people who have that luxury, who have that pieces. What is it that it takes to go from 100 to 1,000 in your case that people miss?
So I would say that one, having the hunger to do something and being good at people management, which is like very important. Having some vision and something that will inspire others to follow, and having a reasonable understanding of whatever business or organization that you are getting into. So all of those things matter. So I saw the organizations from close quarters. I was exposed to a macro view. I liked what we were doing, the impact that we were having. And also it's easier to start from there, right? Because you're not worrying about where the salary is coming from or where you're paying the bills tomorrow, because those sort of bases are covered. If you ask me to go sit in the government office now and figure out how to fill forms, I'm going to be miserable because I don't know how to do it. We have somebody in the office who does that. So I'm more an ideas guy rather than a nitty-gritty details guy.
Shikhar, your internships,
I did a couple of internships. That was during college. In school, I didn't really have, the opportunity. It wasn't what Bharat's saying. The system is not really designed like that. Though the schools that we run, we've designed formal internships, right, in grade 11. So all students, almost the entire class, actually goes out and gets internships, and it's encouraged by parents and stakeholders who are vendors to the school and parents who can absorb them. And it's very interesting that it's sort of an informal experience. And the question you ask is like, does that become a career choice? No, it's just about teaching them to get up on time and put on their clothes and okay. And I think
even discipline, that also matters.
Yeah, and I think that we're sort of overestimating things by, and without really getting the brass tacks right? So just get the fundamentals. So for a lot of them, just that accountability that they got to show up on time, be well dressed, be well prepared, okay, for the day ahead, itself is like an incredible experience, right? There's no option of saying, I'm not ready, okay, I haven't been able to do it, right? So it happens. So actually the mix of these experiences, some come out of flying colors, some get by, right? And some of them actually say this is challenging for us, right? Maybe, we don't want to be necessarily in this environment. So that's a great experience because you've sort of, through process of elimination, you figured out this is not what I want to do, right? When I was 21, I went through a similar process of elimination where I asked my dad that if I was to build a business, would you loan me money? He said, depends on the business, okay? And I didn't really have any money of my own, right? So my dad had some savings. So I looked at the food business, I looked at frozen foods and cold storage and all that, and I realized that I just cannot hang inside a giant fridge for 8 hours a day, right? It's just not going to happen. And so I went through this process of elimination. I must have looked at about 12 or 15 industries, and I realized that food is not my calling, which is my dad's business. And then I looked at the auto business. I found a model. My dad liked it as well. He gave me a significant chunk of his savings. So if I'd blown that up, I don't think he'd let me forget it. The business became successful enough that my dad actually left what he was doing in Kuwait, and then he came and joined this business because that he was doing with his parents. He wanted to migrate. He said, this is an amazing landing pad for me. And the business became sizable. And then I left that business, right? So it's a bit of a paradox.
No, I resonate with the point on the process of elimination because, when you do it, whether it's a formal internship or as a hobby, you're just sort of closing doors. And that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing, right? Funneling is a good thing. And the ones that you leave with, you kind of go deeper and deeper because then I feel like the returns are disproportional to depth. In today's world, already we see, generative AI with deep research and deep thing, this ChatGPT, all these models, they are doing a lot of the hard work of not just computing, but also thinking. For someone to be a successful businessman or businesswoman in the 2040 to 2050 era, what qualities would they need to have? I'm assuming authenticity and being persistent would be timeless. What else a business of the future would need to be successful?
I think you're going to have to be able to pivot very fast because if something comes at your business very quickly, let's say with AI, so the ability to drop your ego and just say, we know the difference when you're under pressure and when you're under threat, and so when you need to do something different, so you're gonna have to think a lot faster, act even faster, which may not have been that case necessarily 10 or 20 years ago.
It's not just agile, like super agile.
Super agile. So I think
super unhooked, as in no anchoring biases.
Yes, no anchoring biases for sure. And biases is really it's the devil's kiss, right? It sometimes really traps your thinking, and so how to practice shedding those biases matters. And a great way to practice that is to have a room full of people that know how to ask questions. So if they ask the right questions, you're building the right culture in the organization. Everything in life begins with a question. So if you can have an organization where people are unafraid and they know how to ask the right questions, you're actually building a thinking organization. So it'll make you agile.
A young graduate of a school of public policy, 25 years old, aspires to be the next Mr. Naidu. So, what does he or she have to do to develop this vision, to develop this hunger, to develop this flexibility to change?
I think it's less to do with intelligence. I think many people are intelligent. I think it's to do with one's moral compass, their value set. That's the more important part. When you are challenged or when you're facing difficult circumstances, how are you going to act? Or due to luck, if you get the stick, if you get the power, how are you going to choose to use it?
And how do you strengthen this moral compass? How do you protect it from all?
So we're trying to do that. I mean, we have a school of public policy at GITAM called Kautilya. So I tell them and I speak to them that how to be a good policy maker, how to be a good negotiator. These are skills that you'll pick up. But what kind of person you're going to be, that is the really hard part. And my hope for you is tomorrow if some of you come into politics or are related to public life in some way, being able to work with all sections of people, whether you are left or right or center, and being able to empathize with people, seeing that people are different but it's okay, and when you get power, like not behaving differently. So these are things that are very important, right? So then it's like inspiration.
Have you learned any lessons from a business person that's very applicable to politics?
So not business, but I would talk about one organization builder, which not many people speak about, and I've already quoted him a few times in the past. There's a eye institute in Hyderabad called LV Prasad Eye Institute, and for the longest time I thought LV Prasad was the founder, and only 7-8 years ago I came to know that it is founded by Dr. G.N. Rao. And if you go to that campus, in the written script you will see very less of that name, and in the news you will see very less of that name. So who is this man who set up this organization, this popular, but he's not known? So LV Prasad was the largest donor and supporter, I think, in the early days, and out of that gratitude, it named it after him. But later on also, he had no desire to bring his name. See, today, LV Prasad is ranked, I think, in the top 10 eye care research institutes in the world. It's a non-profit, 50% of the patients pay, and that money is used to treat another 50% for free. And it's tremendous, the work that they're doing. See, I want to do a lot of good work, but I also have a desire to be known and to be recognized for that. The hardest part for me is do all the work and not be known about it, right? So when I look at somebody like that, it is really inspiring. Often something that I face is people tell me, you can't beat the IITs, you can't beat the IIMs. They spend 6 to 10 times the money that you spend per student, and they have already captured the imagination of India. How are you going to compete with them? It's impossible. And for me, it's like, let me show you how it can be done.
Shikhar, what about you? Are there some politicians from whom you've learned lessons that you've applied in your business?
I just want to call out actually that Chandrababu Naidu, unequivocally, I don't think I've ever met anyone that's not said an incredible visionary, and he actually played a huge role in building the IT sector. Sometimes there are debates about certain people, I think, but with him, I've never come across anyone that's unequivocally given him credit. It's very true. And he still holds that vision. I think he's still got ideas, and he still, he knows how to weave a real good story.
Let's break some myths. What are some myths about business families, businessmen, business operators, CEOs, the world of business that you've had to frequently debunk? Like where people have come to you with their stereotypical vision or their outside-in perspective that you felt couldn't be farther from the truth?
So that's a bit of a tough question, but I'll tell you what I have an allergy to sometimes. So what I have an allergy to sometimes is when, the first slide and I see like somebody trying to raise money or coming to me with an idea and they start with TAM, okay, which is total addressable market, right? And so, they lean on that. And so for the young people watching, that basically means that, India has 1.4 billion people, that's 2.8 billion ears, okay? Right? And so therefore, my market is like infinite.
For your phones.
Okay, exactly. So it doesn't quite work like that, right? And so I actually think that if somebody told me that I have built a successful business in spite of the much significantly smaller time, they've got my attention, right? So it's more of a bottoms-up sort of approach. So you don't have to lean on. So there's, so TAM, sham, all of those kind of things. And so the best entrepreneurs really know how to get your attention. They don't have to lean on the fact that, 1.4 billion country and things like that. I don't think business is an area that needs to have people to go into as a career choice unless, they feel that it comes from within, they want to be there. And sometimes few people I know, so there's this I read this somewhere that that the people who are in business, the highest category of people who are in that business were already in that sector. Okay, so the average age of an entrepreneur is at the age of 40, right? Globally. Okay, so it's not as young as people think it is, right? It's about 40 years old because you have the experience and the credibility to match fundraising and things like that, right? Not every story is the India story all over the world, but 25-year-olds can do it, right? So 40 is generally the average age. It may have come down in the last 10 years. And so you've spent enough time in a space, so you know the area.
Yeah,
so
the nuances.
Yeah, so you've de-risked it to an extent. You feel like you can take a punt at this and you can become an entrepreneur. The second largest category of entrepreneurs are people who happen to fall into it by chance. Vacuum opened up, somebody needed something, you pounced on that idea, the age-old way. The smallest category of people, that's 10% of entrepreneurs in the world, are people who looked at it strategically, process elimination, what is the right way to do it, this is the sector, and basically a classical MBA approach, and they said, this is the sector I should be in. That's only 10%. So life is different to basically sometimes how it's taught, right? And so for me, if somebody really wants to study medicine, I would never try to dissuade them that, business could be a better way out, right? I think you need, and a lot of doctors do become self-employed and entrepreneurs anyway. So maybe 20 years down the line, paths may meet anyway.
And I think we live in a world where people can have multiple careers across multiple industries and professions. So thank you for sharing that. But I think from the outside in, people who are considering a career in politics usually think about whether it's dirty, whether there's nepotism, whether it's too much for the people who have family businesses in politics. What are some myths about politicians that you'd love to break?
It's this, that unless I have a background, I can't get into politics. Similar in the film industry also, right? The perception is that unless I have a background, I won't get an opportunity. Yes, it is true. But that is the case in any sector, even in real estate. Unless you have a background, it's difficult to break into real estate and do well in it. So there are very few professions in the world where without any background, you can, so maybe like sports and art and things like that, maybe. So in politics, I think the myth or the expectation that things will come to you in a very linear and predictable manner is not something that I would recommend. I would say that commit and be persistent, right? Be resilient. And you will find opportunity. Let me tell you the contrary problem. We're running a political party. We're struggling for talent. We're struggling for high quality candidates to come and contest as corporators, as MLAs, as members of parliament. We don't find talent.
To make a pitch, like if you were to recruit, what would you entice them with?
So definitely politics has become very expensive, particularly in the southern states. So I would say that if you're entering with an interest to be in electoral politics, ensure that you're financially sorted, right? It doesn't mean that you have to spend all the money for elections, but have enough so that your day-to-day you're not worried about. And if you're a good enough candidate, people will come forward to contribute and support you. They need to believe that you'll be a leader that will take care of the state and their interests and things like that. So that is one, like be financially secure to some extent. And the other is that be committed to it, right? Be clear about why you're getting into it. It is not, I want status, I want a red light car, and those are not things that are going to help you succeed in that sphere. Be genuinely committed to doing something, care for some cause, and that will make you a very compelling candidate. I'll give you an example. We now have an MP who is an IRS officer. He comes from a marginalized community, and he took early retirement, which is unusual, to do business with his son, earned some money, and then elections came and we were looking for good candidates. Somehow the paths aligned, and we asked him that, can you come, can you spend this much money, whatnot? And he took a bold call that my son is independent, he's doing well. Whatever money I've made, I'm willing to spend 80% of it on these elections. But I want to give back. This is my time to give back. He's come, he's honored his commitment, and he's won the elections. And I see that he's a guy who genuinely cares about doing good. So there are some examples like this that inspire that, okay, he's not a routine politician. He doesn't come from a background of politicians. He's worked in a completely different sphere, has been away for 30 years, has entered at the age of 60-ish. So there are stories like this also, which are very inspirational, but they're not as many as I would like. Today, the role models in society are 80-90% are these people who get highlighted as fly-by-night operators, right? But if you look at the true success stories, the ones who've endured multiple decades, out of 10, 50, 100 people, you will find very few anomalies. Most of them are people who've put in the hours, who've remained consistent, who've delivered on their word. Those are the ones who rise up, right? Look at chief ministers of multiple states, our prime minister, our state chief minister. These are people who haven't just come overnight.
But let's say you're going to look for talent. Do you look for someone who was the president of an elected student body?
It is, but unfortunately in our state, student politics has been sort of stopped many years ago.
So what do you look for? Like, where do you look at a resume and you're saying, oh, this might be a good leading indicator, good predictor that this person might have a strong...
Some social outlook, like if they have a NGO or if they've done something in the service space, that is one leading indicator. Examples of individual success or collective success, have built an organization or have done very well in their field as a doctor or something else. These are all things. So they've earned some kind of a reputation in the market, right? Which is that they're a good person, they're good at what they do, or they've earned enough wealth and they want to give it back. So these are things that we would broadly look at. And also we look at obviously the social factors like caste and which region they come from. These are things also that we want to take care of.
Yeah. Shikhar, are there leading indicators that someone would know that they have the instinct, they have what it takes to be a successful business later in life?
I think 2, 3. One is, did you enjoy the challenge or did it make you feel miserable? So every time you're confronted, let's say, with a business challenge, if you buckle in the challenge, maybe you're not ready, maybe you're just not a fit. If you're not ready, you try again and you will succeed. So you have to make sure that you're pushing the envelope far enough where challenges are presenting themselves. Because if you're playing it really safe and you're convincing yourself that, look, I'm really fit to be an entrepreneur, you may not be necessarily, because when a real challenge is unstoppable, right? It'll come at you, whether you like it or not. The second is, I think running a small business is quite incredible. That's better than just a business plan competition. If you're able to do that at a fairly early age and you enjoyed it and you feel it brings out the best in you and it develops skill sets, you're certainly on the right track. If you did, but it's very interesting. I'd be very surprised if somebody who did that at the age of 16 and then didn't want to do that at the age of like 26. I haven't come across too many of those people.
Yeah, the high is too
because that's
much for dopamine
That's
rush.
just strange, right?
Yeah.
Somebody wanted to do that at 16 and didn't want to do it at 26. Yeah. Usually, obviously, it's the other way around. Somebody who did it at 16 will want to do it at 26.
Both of you run universities, right? If you had the choice of taking anyone in your university, what are some skills and competencies that you would look for? EI is helping make the admissions test, and we test them on a variety of logical thinking, critical reasoning skills. What else would you like? What do you think is an important skill? In some ways, the brand of your university depends on the people you take and, of course, what you do with them inside. But, what do you think is important? As some of these people that are joining your university now will be like at the peak of their career in 2040, 2050. What should we look for in candidates today that will, university ka naam roshan karenge later?
The people applying to us are mostly middle class, above middle class, some wealthy people. And within them, the kind of students that we want, obviously when you said like your students, your alums are your brand ambassadors. You want them to go live the vision of the university, live the values of the university. So first you need to be clear about who you are, right? And that's taken us some time to articulate in more detail. And we do want people who are very honest and very compassionate and seek to excel, but do it the right way. It's not just about success at all costs or training mercenaries for hire, which I think some of the leading institutions in India are doing. So I think finding people with a good nature and then nurturing them the right way would be critical to achieving our vision. So we're looking for those kinds of children. So I still don't have the right formula. We're experimenting with many things, finding good schools where they have a good culture and recruiting students from there, going to peri-urban rural areas where the familial and community bonds are better than maybe in an urban area is another way to look at it. Getting people from economically disadvantaged backgrounds because they have a hunger in the to do well in life, and sort of bringing those meritocratic students in. All of these things sort of matter. But
why is the familial connection, the hunger, and the culture so important for you as in students?
If you're rooted to somewhere and you care for something, then your desire to help something greater than yourself is higher. If you're like sort of unhinged, you're sort of very selfish and whatever you learn, it's just for yourself, then that's not somebody that I would be proud of, right, as a president of a university. Let's take politics only. A lot of Telugu students or employees who are now working in different parts of the world, but they felt that Andhra was in a difficult place and it needs help. We've had tens of thousands of these people come back a couple of months before elections, 1 year before elections, work from home, but work on helping the party come into power because they believed it was better for their village, their city. So those are the kind of people that we would like to develop, right? So GITAM is at a place in the state or in the region where we have the opportunity to shape young minds who will become future leaders, not just followers. So hence we feel that responsibility, and we would like to lead the way so that our peers, other institutions also sort of emulate things that they feel are relevant to them. And these are all theories, Pranav. We haven't actually done a longitudinal study that these people, how are they doing 20 years from now, 30 years from now. But you sort of pick up pieces from different research studies, and there's also a gut instinct that tells you that maybe these people will be better. So I'm still trying. I'm young. I'm 6 years into this journey. So let's see how this goes.
In 2011, when we opened doors, I think Shiv Nadar University was the bellwether for this sort of new university movement in the country, where there was then a series of universities that opened just after us. So we were sort of one of the first. And we tried something what was considered pretty radical at that time, which was a multidisciplinary 4-year university based on research. And so it was a bit of a mouthful. And so what was really interesting at that time, we fundamentally felt that in India, you've got incredible students and incredible academic excellence. And, there's so much so that it became almost a joke that, in India, you first become an engineer and then you decide what you want to be in life, right? So we said, okay, how do we accept that? And given that experience within the university in itself, so we crafted what was considered to be generally one of the first curriculums, which was half multidisciplinary. So you learn from your non-core courses and then from the core courses at the same time. Because we felt that the students that will best embrace this curriculum will be ones that are curious, creative, and then combined and much more holistic in nature. So they will combine the core with the holistic nature, because even if you are an engineer, you're going to need all of these surrounding skills in your life to excel the engineering aspect of it, right? So singularly, that focus sometimes is limiting in itself. And all the best universities generally across the world, and the likes of GITAM, and even a lot of the IITs now are becoming a lot more multidisciplinary, in that sense. We added a component of research because we felt that every student, and it's a research-led university, so we said, why don't we do research at the undergraduate level? So a huge proportion of our students are involved in active research on campus. And so that allows, the fundamental aspect of research is questioning, right? So they're questioning, they're curious, combined with this holistic education. And to our surprise, actually, there were enough students in India that took to it, like a duck to water, right? And it was not as difficult as we thought it would be. The other aspects of running a university, which are always very challenging, but this aspect of it actually was embraced quite quickly. So much so then, we ended up sort of helping out a lot of other universities because they asked, what's working and what's not working. And then that became, this model. And, it's been some time now, right? It's been almost 14 years ago.
But thanks to both of you for creating these institutions right here in India, right here, accessible at price points that are not outrageous. Thank you both for your time on this. I learned immensely from this conversation in terms of, how innate, inborn this, upbringing actually plays a role in terms of a career in business or politics. I realized that, you can sort of grow it, but it's both nature and nurture in some ways that you need to be successful. I heard the, importance of persistence because in politics it's very nonlinear. In business also there are many challenges that come, and you need to be able to sort of stay the course on these pieces. And of course there are many similarities of leading people, of being empathetic, of being agile, especially as generative AI sort of starts challenging like what only humans can do. So thank you for your time. It was great having
Thank
you.
you. Thank
Bharat,
you.
and
Thank you,
great
Pranav.
having you, Shikhar, on the
Yeah,
show.
this was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Awesome. Great. Thanks.